All right, we will go ahead and get started. It's 12 o'clock. So, hi everyone, and welcome to the Montana Institute on Ecosystems weekly seminar series, The Rough Cut. This fall, we are highlighting the important topics of climate change and its impacts, so please be sure to check the calendar for upcoming talks in the Rough Cut series. Today, I'm pleased to introduce sustainability representatives from Montana State University who will speak on assessing and addressing MSU's environmental footprint. This event will be an informal panel discussion and Q&A with representatives from the Campus Sustainability Advisory Council and the MSU Office of Sustainability. We invite you to come and learn about how MSU assesses its environmental footprint, including its greenhouse gas emissions, and about new developments in an overarching campus strategy to set and achieve sustainability targets. The panel includes faculty, staff, and student voices, including Kristen Blackler, MSU Resource Conservation Officer, Paul Edlin, Program Manager at the Office of Sustainability, Nicholas Fitzmaurice, ASMSU Rep, and Bruce Maxwell, Professor of Agroecology and CSAC founding member and former chair. As a reminder, this event is being recorded. We encourage you to keep your cameras and microphones off during the presentation and to join in for questions and answers when the speakers have finished. With that being said, I will hand it over to you, Kristen.
Thanks, Paige. Hi, everyone out there. It's really exciting to participate in my first Rough Cut series here at Montana State University and to share a little bit of a sneak preview of all of the good work that we've been doing this past couple years to get ourselves ready for the next phase in sustainability work at MSU. So we're here and we're going to co-present today with Paul Edlin, so Paul wave. And we'll walk you through a little bit of the history of sustainability at MSU and then take a switch off to Paul, who will talk about the future of sustainability at MSU. So thanks everyone for joining us. We've been very excited to be here. So history of our office. I'm going to take a second to talk about the Montana State University Office of Sustainability. We certainly aren't the first sustainability effort to ever happen on this campus, but we are part of the structural change to make these what needs to happen. And so our office was established in 2012 through a student-led initiative. Students imposed a fee upon themselves in 2009 to create the first ASMSU, Associated Students of Montana State University Sustainability Center, which really at that day and age was formed to start a recycling program really on campus. And then as that program grew and changed, they realized that this was broader than just students. It's everybody. And so they petitioned to let the administration to create an Office of Sustainability, which is jointly funded by ASMSU and administration and finance. And we really function as an incubator for student, faculty, and staff sustainability action. So wherever there is a sustainability idea, we try to bring that to market and also create this wonderful interaction between students, faculty, and staff to create a learning laboratory for sustainability on our campus. So like I said, the history of sustainability predates even our office. So I can have a little timeline here, and you can see in 2012, we were structured to become the Office of Sustainability. And a couple things to bring out in 2011, 2009, campus did its first greenhouse gas baseline inventory, and then used that data to inform a climate action plan in 2011. We updated that in 2016, and we also importantly joined ASHE, which is the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. We did that so that we could start participating in the STARS reporting framework, which is the gold standard for sustainability metrics in higher education. And so it brings us to today. So the creation of a campus sustainability framework. Student demand and strong support for sustainability action, in particular student demand, led to campus creating a special call out in the overall campus strategic plan. So item 3.36 is specifically to create a sustainability plan for campus. So we got to work doing that, and this is the results of those actions over the past couple of years. And how do we do it? So I want to bring your attention, everyone, to sustainability reporting. We have a joke in our office that it's not a joke, but in sustainability, if it's not measured, it doesn't matter. And in sustainability, everything matters. So we set ourselves a big challenge to how do we start to collect data about what's happening on our campus across every category, and then use that data to make informed decisions about the direction that we need to go. So given that reporting mandate, we completed our very first sustainability report in 2018, and it was certified in 2019. So this is that program I mentioned earlier, STARS, which is a program of ASHE. So this is the Sustainability Tracking, Assessment, and Rating System. It's completely transparent. It's third-party verified. I want to bring your attention to this because you can go onto the ASHE website. You can pull up any university if they choose to report. You can go into great detail and see every single thing that they are claiming to do. And I also want to say, we don't just claim to do, we have to actually prove that we're doing this. So this is truly the gold standard in transparency and sustainability auditing. We're proud to be a partner in this process. Our first assessment, we earned a silver. We're undergoing our second assessment right now. And we're hoping for gold, so we're gunning for gold. The other goal of the Sustainability Office is constant improvement. So we're really looking forward to coming back to you next February, hopefully, with another updated STARS rating. And so the STARS program also, if some of you might be familiar with LEAD, but it's organized in a similar fashion. So it's not a ranking system per se, it's ratings. So you earn credit points. So it's a bronze, silver, gold, and then platinum level. And so we at this university have set our sights on improving our rating from silver. So which led to, okay, so back up. So after STARS, we were blessed with all of this rich data about our campus and sort of a roadmap for ways that we could improve. We took the STARS data, and that's what we used to inform the sustainability plan that was the call out in the strategic plan. And after an broad campus stakeholder engaged process, where we took this draft plan that the Office of Sustainability created based on STARS data. We turned that over to the Campus Sustainability Advisory Committee, asked for their support because it's a firm belief of mine that people help create that which they're given a chance to participate in. So we didn't want this to just come out of the Sustainability Office. We really worked quite hard to engage with stakeholders from all across campus and the community, and leveraging the relationship that we had with the Campus Sustainability Advisory Council to do that. So when Julia Haggerty came on board as the chair, we really kicked that into high gear and engaged in stakeholder outreach, not just within the council, but throughout all of campus, which then led to the creation of the Campus Sustainability Framework, which is anchored around 3 long-term targets. So these are our targets for campus for sustainability. We want to be STARS Platinum by 2035 or sooner. So I'd like you to, as you're watching this, I'd like you to put an asterisk next to all of these dates. The goal really is to do these as soon as possible. These are the dates that we feel comfortable with now, not even comfortable. These are still ambitious targets. They're what is possible now given everything we know. But we're really hopeful that as the world wakes up to the severity of the climate issue, that there will be some enabling technologies, new partnerships that come that will help us be able to achieve all of these metrics even sooner. So our long-term targets, stars, platinum by 2035. So all of those data points that we had fit neatly and nicely back into this stars goal. We have a zero waste goal, which many of you who continue to ask me questions about how to recycle in Montana, this one is, you can see, is also ambitious. There's a lot of things we can't do in Montana, but we're gonna try and find a better way to do that. And then the big one, which we're really excited to announce, is this carbon neutrality goal by 2040. Again, asterisks or sooner. So, and then as I turn it over, I'm going to turn it over next to Paul Edlund, who's going to talk a little bit about how we do this reporting and how we came to come to these goals in this framework. So, Paul, are you ready to go? Paul? Oh, okay.
I'm having some connection issues. Kristen, could you repeat the last 15 seconds of what you just said?
Sure. I just said that
Sorry about that.
no, it's fine, that you would take us through how we behind all of these targets are detailed metrics and reporting systems. And so Paul's going to talk about how we're doing that on our campus and how we've pulled all of the reporting responsibility into the Office of Sustainability in collaboration with many partners across campus. So I'll turn it over to you to talk about how we measure our emissions, if you're ready. So.
Awesome. Yep, I sure am. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Edlund. I'm the program manager here in the Office of Sustainability. And part of my responsibility in this place is what we call data collection for sustainability reporting. I also get to work really closely with our students here on campus, and that definitely fills my cup. But the other half of my job is getting to be in charge of data collection for these awesome sustainability reports. Just a little bit of backstory for all of y'all. As we were working on our sustainability plan, transitioning from this past spring in 2021 to summer of 2021, we realized that there was a lot of opportunity for us to learn about how emissions move on campus and to go through a joint process. If you guys remember a couple slides ago, Kristen was referring to the process of sustainability reporting. Step one is identifying a need, and then step two is brainstorming through potential solutions with engaged stakeholders. So this past summer, we went through the process of identifying, of working with different campus partners to do a deep dive into all things greenhouse gas emissions here on campus. And here's a little bit of the things that we learned here. The one thing that I would really love to be able to point out to all of you is the next step of understanding the greenhouse gas emissions is what we call Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions. And these are different kinds of emissions that are based off of from where they are coming in relation to an institution. So I'll say that again, there's Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions, and it really depends on where those emissions are coming from in order to effectively understand and then mitigate them over the future. Scope 1 emissions are all of those emissions that are associated with things that are happening on campus in the geographic boundary that is our institution. Scope 2 emissions are are all of the utility data that we purchase from our utility providers, WAPA and Northwestern Energy. And then Scope 3 is basically everything else that happens not on campus, but we still choose to take responsibility for. Those big players in there is air travel, that is MSU related, commuting, students, faculty, and staff getting to and from campus, and then and waste that happens here on campus. Kristen, I think we could hit next slide. So this is hopefully just to give a little bit of a deeper demonstration of our responsibility in this office in the way that we do data collection. I get to reach out to probably about 20 different campus partners and try to identify the right numbers to fill in those holes around Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions. I get to work really closely with Duke Elliott to learn about how our heating plant burns natural gas to create steam to heat our buildings. So that's going to be in the Scope 1 category, or in that top left picture in those steam tunnels. Those are emissions that happened on campus that we get to be aware of. Scope 2 is there's our utility provider and our in the middle bottom picture over in Colstrip. Those are all things about electricity being generated off campus, but we still take responsibility for them because it's our energy that's been burnt, that's been generated by burning coal and natural gas. And then Scope 3 are those emissions that are happening off of campus. Things like airfare or commuting to and from campus. The way that the one and done try to way to appreciate this is how are emissions associated with the location of the source. And what we learned about that is that every single different kind of emission is going to take a different strategy to try to understand how to reduce it over time so that we can follow through on that 2040 carbon neutrality goal. So there will have to be a different strategy in order to reduce Scope 1 emissions associated with our heat plant than what it takes to offset emissions associated with air travel, or even change behavior to reduce commuting. I think we could hit slide, Kristen. But the thing that we also are really excited about is just trying to understand how do we expand our understanding of what emissions we're really responsible for and what are the trends that will continue to happen. This is our understanding of greenhouse gases that MSU is responsible for since our baseline in 2008. I would love to add a caveat that we are the most confident about numbers leading up to fiscal year 2019. The numbers that are associated with fiscal year 20 and 21, those are our estimates. We're still doing some commuter surveys to try to get the best numbers associated with that. Those are our current projections associated with fiscal year 20 and 2021. But this is really exciting for us because it's an opportunity to identify that in these certain years, we implemented these kinds of techniques, and this is the real-time event that it had to reduce or change our greenhouse gas emissions. There are different policies or campus infrastructure techniques that we got to learn about this past summer that we're really excited to implement in accordance with our sustainability framework planning and moving forward, especially into the future. So this is a great snapshot to try to understand of what's been happening in the past and how will that impact the way that we make decisions in the future. One more slide, Kristen. And I would love to once again call attention to the essence of the sustainability framework in that in a lot of ways, the function of the framework is to set baselines and be a reporting tool to inspire further action in the future. I'd love to explain a little bit a couple of these pictures that are associated with each steps. There's 5 pictures and I was hoping to demonstrate that each picture is representative of one step. That in a lot of ways we are choosing to gather evidence by the ways of the STARS reporting tool, other sustainability reporting tools, but especially our greenhouse gas emissions. And that as we engage with our campus partners, we're brainstorming those meaningful solutions that's really informed by quantitative evidence. Just on December 1st, we are going to be presenting the sustainability framework to University Council. And in that framework proposal, there will be a lot of solutions and the directions that we're heading towards. But then comes the next exciting part, which is actually managing our resources to make real change here on campus. I think that the evolution of our building infrastructure is a really great example of that in the way of how we understand the installation of jabs, to Norm S. Bjornson, to American Ending Hall, to the way that we're choosing to design our wellness center. It's a great example of gathering evidence, brainstorming solutions, and then putting them into practice. And then the best part about this for me is getting to be able to tell our story. Sustainability reporting is a really great tool to identify this is what's really happening and how do we communicate that to the rest of our campus community so that we can inspire action. And that's what we're really hoping that the sustainability framework becomes is a cycle of styling sustainability reporting to inspire action over the next 20 years. So that's where we're headed, and we're really excited to share a conversation with y'all. Thank you for your attention, and I think we can swing it over to questions.
Back to Paige.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much for such an informative presentation. This is a Q&A panel, and we have 3 other panelists here. So I would like to encourage the audience to bring your questions to our attention now. I recommend unmuting yourself and asking your questions, but you can also use the raise hand function or put your question in the chat.
This is Paul. I have a question. Thanks very much for the panelists for the information and, of course, all your work over the course of the last few years, compiling and presenting. This is a question for Bruce. Bruce, as somebody who chaired CSAC, can you comment a little bit about the changes that you see taking place and your thoughts on CSAC, which was an advisory body that allowed students and the community to directly advise the president, to now a new executive council and the new structure of whatever we're calling CSAC now, the advisory council. I think it's called a sustainability consortium.
I can comment on that. I say that I was, as was given in the history by Kristen, I was one of the first CSAC chairs. And at that time, we were gathering information about just what could we do. And so much of it was focused around facilities at that point because they had the greatest potential to start to create different kinds of projects and had some already underway at that time. The interesting part was that no one really knew what was going on. And some of the metrics that you see now are a direct result of some of those activities that were really important, I think, early on. In terms of energy savings aspects on campus in particular with the heat pumps and things that were developed. That's all great progress, and we should definitely be more vocal about that story. And I think that's part of what's starting to happen now, what this program itself is about. In terms of decision making, we were, I guess I was probably the first CSAC chair that was appointed as part of the council that would advise the president. And at that time, we were asked what was the best structure to do that. And we decided it was most effective to actually report through Terry Least, a vice president for finance at the university, and that in terms of being able to get funding to do different projects, that made most sense. So structurally, that's the way that we did advise the president, was actually through the vice president. And we met on a regular basis. And that was sort of the transfer of information from what CSAC, the committee, was doing, the advisory committee was doing, to upper administration. If you're asking how well did that work, I can say that I think it was appropriate and worked fairly well at that time, because Terry was also in charge of facilities. So there was this direct line of communications, and because so much of the effort was based in around what facilities was doing, that it made sense. You also asked me to comment on this new structure. I think it's yet to be seen what that actually means for the effort on campus. I think it does place it at what appears to be a higher level of decision making, and that can be good, because I think that the commitment, it demonstrates commitment by upper administration. It also, on the other hand, brings it closer to the president's control. Therefore, does that mean it will result in more activities that are being called for in the framework? That's yet to be seen, and we won't know that until we experience it for a little while. So that's as much as I really can say about that structuring. Missing another part of your question that you wanted to hear my perspective on? Okay. All right.
Thanks, Bruce. Really helpful. There were a couple of questions in the chat that I can address. So Whoops, and they're coming in fast. So let me see if I can actually do that. Going back to Robin's question, she said, awesome work. Please talk more about where you are with electrification. Anything being done or planned for building electrification? The answer to that is a resounding yes. And I think as I was putting this together, I think we need to get Duke back and we can talk about our campus strategies for how we handle energy on campus. So our mantra is to reduce. So we want to conserve our energy first, and then we want to reclaim. And that's where we get into this electrification process. So I would like to invite all of you locally to come out to the grand opening of Romney Hall. That's the first time on this campus where we were able to take a building built in the 1920s and take that off of natural gas and connect that to a heat pump system and geothermal system that is powered by electricity. So that's part of the process that we're going through as we build new buildings. Those are supplied with heat pumps, so electrified buildings. And then as we look to the future, we want to learn from and plan how to convert the majority of our building stock to get that off of natural gas onto electrical, and then make way for that eventual conversion to renewable. So the 3 R's: reduce, reclaim, renew. So that's a quick answer to that. And it's really exciting to be we've gotten quite good at building new buildings that meet these standards. It's a whole new challenge to do that when you're talking about retrofitting buildings. So Romney Hall, and again, the grand opening is this Friday afternoon, is our first foray into that, and we're really excited. So hopefully that answers your question. Sorry, they're coming in fast. And then let's see. Oh, Colin, you had a question about how are we collecting commuter info? This is a great question. So some of it is easier, I'll say, in that we can pull credit card reports and travel authorizations, and that's how we get at any kind of directly financed air travel. Other parts are a little bit more challenging. So we look at commuter surveys where people self-report how they get to and from campus on any average sort of basis. And then we're looking forward to working more closely with parking services because they have now license plate readers. So we can go through and anonymously, we can make this anonymous, but we can tie each parking permit to the address where it originates, travel around, see how often those cars are in our lots, and then sort of get better data about commuting traffic patterns that way. We also partner really closely with Streamline, which is our local bus system. And although they can't tell us exactly who rides the bus, who among the people on the bus are MSU faculty, staff, and students, we are able to look at trends over time. And so we know that the largest ridership on Streamline is actually students, faculty, and staff, just based on data that we can collect year round. You see a real steep drop off in May, and then a big uptick again in late August, September. So it's not perfect, and that's one of the areas. Commuter data is hard. There are some assumptions. It's an area in our greenhouse gas inventory that we qualify as we have a low level of confidence in that data. We'd like to get better. But this is sort of the best available that we have, and sort of on par with basically how everyone else is doing this. So we welcome any and all good ideas about how to do that better from this community listening in. So, and then now, Paige, maybe you could read them out. I'm losing all of the chats.
Yes, I definitely can. Okay, so Mark asks, I'm curious about the chart showing greenhouse gas, square feet, and population. Are the recent reductions in population due to remote working, drop in student enrollment, or both?
So yeah, that was definitely, that little drop was COVID. And so we saw that in our emissions, and we saw that in our population. So that's, and then this year, although we had a record incoming class of first year students, we didn't have a record-breaking year in student population overall. So, but we are still unique among most institutions in that our student enrollment continues to grow over time. Most places are sort of seeing some declines. So we didn't really calculate whether it was remote work. So that drop is, if you were employed with MSU, we counted you. If you were enrolled in MSU, we counted you. So that little drop is the decline in enrollment overall from, we can attribute that to COVID actually. So great question.
Thanks, Kristen. Bruce asks, how do the MSU STARS metrics compare with peer universities?
So we actually, silver is not bad. So we're kind of in the middle of the pack, but we're, like I said, we're gunning for more. Most universities have been doing this kind of reporting and actually doing more coordinated sustainability effort work for much longer. So I think I'm feeling really good about our next assessment that will put us among the leaders. And then, like I said, the real challenge is how do we get to that STARS Platinum? And that takes a level of coordination so Bruce, you mentioned, I thought this was really insightful and helpful even to put things into context before I got here about starting with facilities and looking at that work. We have a very coordinated effort about our operations and facilities sustainability work. And I think the next areas where there's a lot of activity, but it's maybe not as coordinated and therefore not having as big of an impact as it possibly could be, lies within the academics and research endeavors on campus. So those categories are the most heavily weighted in STARS assessment because that is the most important thing for higher ed. And so I think as we move forward and start to build these partnerships and start uniting around this goal, I think we'll see a lot of improvements in those areas as well. There's a lot of things going on. We were actually surprised in our first assessment. There's more happening in the classroom and in research than it might feel like on this campus. So that's the new challenge, is how do we actually make everyone aware of everything that's going on, and then create this snowball effect where we can just work together in a more coordinated fashion to do more.
Okay, Kathy asks, does the pending Faculty Senate resolution reinforce the sustainability framework or detract from it? I'm confused about how the two efforts are related to each other. Can someone clarify?
I was reading the questions and I missed that. Can you ask it one more time? So,
Yeah.
and someone else can jump in. It doesn't have to be the Kristen Q&A. So.
Okay, Kathy asks, does the pending Faculty Senate resolution reinforce the sustainability framework or detract from it? I'm confused about how the two efforts are related to each other. Can someone clarify?
So I can give you my perspective from a staff member on campus, and what happened there was a similar resolution that went forward in Campus Sustainability Advisory Committee. My personal opinion is that the resolution needs to be, the resolution itself needs to figure out what it is actually trying to ask for, and where the authority is at the appropriate place for that kind of resolution. So the resolution as it went forward is a document coming out of Faculty Senate that does not mention curriculum, does not mention research, that just puts all of the, a lot of, how do I put this? Not even a burden, because it's stuff we're already doing. All of the emphasis back on facilities and operations without even taking a look at what faculty could be doing. So I would say if there was going to be a resolution from Faculty Senate, if I was a faculty member, I would want to take a look and say, what am I doing to contribute to this? What is the impact that I want to create? And is this particular resolution having that, will that get us closer to our achieved outcome? I don't think the current resolution that has been put forth does that. And there's been it's been tabled in order to go back through and sort of correct some of those things that are maybe not, I don't know, they're just a little bit confusing. So it's a confusing resolution. I don't think it serves to enhance the work that we're doing. I was hoping for something different, but that's the resolution that was put forth.
All
I can
right.
also chime in a little bit.
Go ahead.
So I'm a student senator. I also am a member of CSAC, work in the Office of Sustainability, among some other things. But we had a resolution in the Student Senate, somewhat similar to the Faculty Senate and CSAC, with a little bit different, I guess, objective. And I went to talk to Faculty Senate last week or so, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, to talk about our resolution, and I'm not really sure what the current status of the faculty resolution is since then. But what our resolution mainly did was we wanted to kind of get behind the sustainability framework. So we formally endorsed the sustainability framework and its goals, and then kind of asked for a continued effort and maybe like building upon that momentum with the administration, as well as stating that we as a student body believe this is a crisis and want to continue raising that alarm and putting resources towards it. So I'm not sure what the Faculty Senate resolution will finally come out as, but those are some of my thoughts when I went and talked with them.
Thanks, Nick. Does anyone have any more comments on this question?
This is Bruce. I'd like to hear what Paul LaChapelle has to say about that a resolution, since he's been probably closer than anyone else to it, and maybe he can give his perspective on whether it supports or detracts, or is it independent.
Sure, thanks, Bruce. And I don't want to take time away from the panelists here. I did post the text to the resolution in the chat, and faculty have been working on this, a small group, and it's built to over 51 co-sponsors now, faculty co-sponsors. We've been working on this since March, so it's not been a new process. It's been meant to be open and transparent, involve faculty and anyone who wanted to provide input on the text. It is going through some revisions right now, and there are some faculty that think that it shouldn't have anything to do with the framework, and others that do. So I think this remains to be seen, and I think it's been a healthy conversation, and it's certainly made more people aware that we're engaged in this this important conversation. And I'm confident that faculty will rally around some common language to move this forward. So thanks, Bruce, for the opportunity.
All right. Tony says, fun frame, everyone. I think I might have missed something, Paul. How does a relative decrease in greenhouse gas minus 30% relative to 2008 lead to carbon neutrality? My understanding is that so long as sources or sinks are greater than 1, we never get there, even if we are already on path to carbon neutrality. E.g., say 2008 emissions were 50,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. I understand today we are at 100K. How does a 30% reduction from 2008 get us to neutrality? If you could walk me through the math, that would be helpful.
Definitely. Hey, thanks, Tony. I really appreciate this. I'm gonna do my best to make sure that I understand your question completely. So if I'm heading in a different direction, feel free to throw in the chat or hop on the audio. So the thing that I wanted to focus on is sources over sinks equals 1. And I think that what might get a little confusing about that is that since 2008, we have consistently put out anywhere between 50,000 and 70,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And I think what your question is heading towards, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that on a total chronological scale, we will have always put more carbon neutral or carbon in the office or greenhouse gases in the atmosphere than we are taking out. And I think that the interpretation of carbon neutrality is not on a total temporological scale as much as it is per year. So instead of moving away, so in the way that we understand carbon neutrality, we're not focusing on the total amount that we've ever put in the atmosphere as much as on a yearly basis. How much carbon are we responsible for in the way that it moves into the atmosphere? And that's where the opportunity for greenhouse gas or electrification and greening the grid comes in, so that in the fiscal year 2040, all of the energy that we've ever used on campus will not come from fossil fuels, and if any of it did, we would intentionally offset that year's worth of greenhouse gases.
That's helpful. I think you have read cumulative emissions into my question, and I didn't intend that. So let's just say it's 2040, and our emissions are 150 or whatever thousand metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per year. The only way you can get carbon neutrality would be to have completely offset in terms of sinks that in all those emissions. And so the problem I had with the math was, if you're, let's say, 50% lower than 2008 emissions, you had a graph of 30% lower. But if we're 50% lower, that doesn't necessarily get us to carbon neutrality. Does that make sense? Because as long as you're not at 100%, you're actually, quote unquote, not part of the solution. And quote unquote, these were your words, you haven't solved climate change, right? Does that make sense? So I hear you. And of course, we've talked about this. We're trying to get emissions down, but showing them relative to some other year, instead of just showing the pluses and minuses each year, might be more helpful for folks that are trying to track your math. Thank you.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I think I'm tracking in that direction. I think the purpose of that graph, Tony, was to demonstrate the trends of how we are using energy and how that energy is being sourced from fossil fuels. Kristen, did you want to hop on there?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's Tony, it's very common to talk about to measure over time. So in 2009, that's when we first started doing any kind of greenhouse gas inventory. So we're looking at this year over year and trying to get much better in how we collect and report this data to prompt not just questions like this, but actually really to dig into the solutions. Carbon neutrality is very easy to say, it's very difficult to actually do. And so to have MSU come out and say, we know this is difficult, we're going to try and do it anyway, I think is the big takeaway from this. So we are learning about how to get more efficient. We're learning at how we can convert our own operations off of natural gas, our own campus to get that off of natural gas, which is, our steam plan is about a third of our emissions come from that. A third come from what we purchase from Northwestern Energy. And then another third is really everybody else. So it's how everyone else chooses to come to work and what they choose to do, how to fly for conferences and research, et cetera. So it's going to take everything. And we want to hit that down to zero, and to getting to zero, maybe we'll have to be offsets, or maybe we can get to a point where we can generate enough power to get so efficient that anything that we add via renewable will actually either level us out or in a perfect world be climate positive. So maybe the best thing for MSU would be to be doing more than our fair share of removing carbon dioxide from the environment. So that's the process that we're undertaking. We've set this target based on stakeholder engagement and a task force this summer, looking at everything that sort of all of the barriers that are currently in place, policies, infrastructure, funding, all of these different things. And then what came out of that summer working group was this target. And then that led to the creation of 3 more task force really to update a climate action plan for campus. And so we'll have a group looking at, for the first time in our campus's history, comprehensively looking at scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. How do we reduce our emissions as fast as possible? And how much does that cost? What are the financing mechanisms that we need to employ to do that? This is really, I know we kind of gave a quick overview of, this framework, which we're extremely excited about, but this is a big deal. This is really exciting for campus. We have had such amazing feedback from students who participated in this effort, more students who want to participate in this effort, and the administration and faculty as well, who are really on board to meet this challenge. And it is a challenge. So I'll stop with that. Sorry.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, Taylor asks, is there any collaboration with the city or county to increase ease in commuting? She says, if I were to bike to campus, the majority of my commute would be along a road with no shoulder and lots of blind hills, and it doesn't feel very safe to be on a bike.
So back to me again. The answer is yes, but it's not enough yet. So we have a transportation demand working group on campus that looks at how we can improve our own the sustainable transportation experience on campus. But we recognize that our footprint in that area, or what we have control over, is really limited. So we have developed really good partnerships with the city of Bozeman, who has they have a transportation planner on board for the first time in a long time. They have a sustainable transportation coordinator who was just hired recently, and they are also hiring another transportation demand management person. So there's a lot of the pieces are being put in place in the city, and also hopefully outwards into the county, to have this coordinated effort to identify what are ways that we can help make the sustainable transportation choice the safest and most, in my opinion, most pleasurable choice. So we want, it's all about choices for people. So we want to make sure we're working on that too. So.
Hey, Kristen, this is Matt Madsen. Can I just jump in really quick?
Yes, please, Matt. I forgot you were on here.
There's actually a bunch of stuff going on. So the city is in the process of an active transportation plan, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities for community input. So this would be a great opportunity for students and staff and people on campus to actually be able to share their input about their active transportation commuting experiences, because that document is probably going to guide some of the active transportation planning, construction, infrastructure for the next 5 to 10 years within the city. So it's going to become a really important thing. At the county level, the Triangle Trails Plan was passed by the commission yesterday, and I believe is going to be adopted at the end of the month. It still has to get adopted by both Belgrade and Bozeman in order to become a true working document. It goes to the City of Belgrade's commission on November 15th. So if anybody wanted to make comment on that, it's basically like a trails master plan that talks about how the Triangle region, which is Four Corners, Belgrade, and Bozeman, are going to be connected via trails, on-street and off-street bike routes and other facilities, as well as who will be responsible for maintenance and other cost sharing like that. Really important document, really important for community support around the active transportation world. They're also in the process of the Greater Triangle Transportation Plan, which is going to become the transportation master plan for the entire kind of region, and will probably move towards MPO status, which is a whole nother discussion based off census numbers and stuff like that. So right now there is actually some good opportunity for input from the community around active transportation, the importance of it, issues that you're facing right now, and how it will affect long-term connectivity for the entire region as a whole. Thanks, sorry.
No, thanks. Thanks, Matt. It's really helpful.
Okay, so Paul LaChapelle says, the sustainability plan contained great detail that is not captured in the framework. Where and when will the details of the sustainability plan be posted?
So, Paul, as you know, the sustainability plan is the campus sustainability framework, which is something that the Office of Sustainability really supports because framework is a more accurate representation of what we're doing. It's a decision-making framework, and it's an active, active ongoing process. Every single detail that was in that sustainability plan is mapped over and fits exactly with the STARS goal, which is how this started. It started with STARS, it took a little detour, and it ended up right back with STARS. So hopefully this is the last time we have to answer this question. I've had this question with you numerous times. It's all there, and you know this, so.
Okay. Taylor asks, is there any data on water use and carbon sequestration in terms of landscaping on campus? EJ, that sounds like a question for you.
I knew that was going to happen sooner or later, right? So, two-part question there. So yes, we have a lot of information since time immemorial, not quite that long. Since about 2008, we track our yearly irrigation use. So a couple things about that. One, it's non-potable water, so that helps with resource drain on potable water. Not that all water is valuable. So let's put that out there. And the other thing that you need to know or think about is we have a pretty sophisticated system which waters to ET, which is evapotranspiration. So we only replace the water that's used as opposed to just throwing water around because we think it's a good idea. So there's a little data-driven irrigation that goes there. And the third part about that is that we have adapted some of our landscape establishment and landscape plant choices to minimize water use on the front end. So American Indian Hall is a really good example of inclusion of way more native or climatically adapted plants, which will over time have less water use. And the green bags are another great example of getting trees established. It allows us to water them, one, responsibly, but more importantly, establish a deeper root system a little bit more quickly to add resiliency over time to those types of planting. And then carbon sequestration, we have the ability to do that. We have a huge database actually that has all 2,500 or so trees that we have on campus in there. But you have to calculate that based on type of tree and size of tree. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that goes in there. So we could figure it out. It would take a little bit of work. We did do it as part of the Romney project in the geothermal field, and we looked at all the trees that were there and figured out about how much we were sequestering there per time to balance it with the justification of the rule of 13 trees to actually get that in there. And it turned out in that particular calculation that it would take 10,000 trees to get the same amount of offset per year that we're going to generate from that use of the geothermal in terms of energy input. So yes, we have both of those things. We can get into more detail, but we do try and recognize water as a resource, and probably the new gold is the way as a headwaters thing. And then we are continuing to increase the diversity of our plant palette with a special concentration on water and resource use.
Thanks, EJ.
Yep.
David McWethy asks or says, I often receive questions from community members asking about MSU sustainability practices. Recently, many questions have focused on stadium lights, commuting, commuting, and landscaping sprinkler practices. What is the best place to direct community members asking about these items if these practices seem out of sync with a concerted effort towards increased sustainability? Can these be addressed through the Sustainability Council?
So I'll jump in. I would say the best place to direct community members is to my office. So sustainability@montana.edu is the email address that we use. And then because I am the greenmatch.com on campus, if I can't answer that question directly, I can funnel it to the person or direct it to the appropriate person to answer those questions. So yeah, I mean, all of those things are considered into this process, and some of these decisions were made before, we had this emphasis on sustainability. So a lot of what we're dealing with now is a result of decisions that were made before we got here. So that's one of the challenges that we have. But hopefully we've demonstrated over time that, that's the best part about working here at Montana State, is that we have actually pushed ourselves and we've learned, and each building that we build is better than the last one before. We're constantly improving not only our practices, but our metrics, but also our practices. So I think sustainability is often sometimes mischaracterized as some sort of endpoint, and really it's a constant process of improvement in all categories. And so that's the challenge of it, but that's also the joy of it too. So it's really exciting to get to work on all of these projects with all these great people across campus. So there were a couple questions in the discussion about some offsets and different things like that. So our sort of approach right now to offsets is to, I'm going to use a bad analogy here, but I want to treat those basically like the liposuction you get after you can't shed that last stubborn 5 pounds. So really we're looking at how do we reduce our emissions as much as possible under our own direct control. And then after that, pursue a policy and a procedure of, verifiable, permanent offsets that are meaningful and aligned with our mission at Montana State University. So that's something that everything's on the table, but that's not our first approach to this. And then we do have one existing carbon sink on campus, and that has to do with our partnership with the city of Bozeman. So we do compost the food waste from all of our dining facilities and catering on campus, and that is a source. It's actually a carbon sink for campus. So we do, because that's being turned into compost and then used as soil all throughout Bozeman on all of our parks and areas. So hopefully that answers that question too. So, anything else? This is great. We need to do this more often. There's so much to share. There's so much good information and so much amazing projects happening on campus. It's hard sometimes, especially in our office, to stop working and to pull ourselves up and pull our heads up out of the computer and the work that we're doing and say, actually, this is really compelling and we need to share that. So this framework and the adoption of it, we're really excited about, especially provided it's going to provide many more opportunities to engage with people on campus, to develop new programs, and to share all of the good things that we're doing on campus too. So let's see. Oh, there's one more question. Yeah. So Adam, the last question in there is, do I understand that course curriculum around climate is an important part of improving MSU START? Absolutely. So is curriculum related work part of what you see faculty? Yes, yes, please. So really that's an area, I'm not faculty on campus. I don't, and that is that's your unique responsibility on this campus. So no one can tell you what to teach or how to teach it. So I'm really looking forward to developing partnerships with faculty, and I'll be at Faculty Senate tonight to answer questions about that, to look for ways where we can come together as a campus to say, this is what we think are the most important learning outcomes around climate and sustainability. And how do we make sure that every single person who comes to our campus, every one of our students, interfaces with this kind of learning outcome and doesn't get to leave this place without understanding and developing skills around climate change, critical thinking skills around the problems, etc. So that's not for me to tell you how to do that, but I'm here as a resource to help guide you and to help share examples of how other places have done it. I think we do a phenomenal job in certain pockets of campus. What I see here is maybe, and like I said, more than I even realized. This teaching and teaching about this subject is happening more than I even realized, but it's maybe not as coordinated as it could be, which makes it then difficult for incoming freshmen or our students to kind of navigate if they are interested in this area, how they can get involved. So we'd like to really help accelerate, get students involved right from the start. And Bruce, yeah, you're probably a better person to answer that.
Well, I'd like to make one comment on that, and that is just a very quick review of the stars of the universities that have gold, that I would regard as peer universities that do have gold rankings. Almost all of them are topping us primarily in curriculum in that designated area, and like double us. And so many of them have minors in climate change or climate science. That's something we don't have, for example. But we don't even have a climate scientist, a true climate scientist on board at MSU. So that says something right there, that you know, with departments that would logically have such a person, we don't have that. And so that's a really crucial area, it seems, that should be focused on, not just so that we have a better stars rating, but
Yeah.
truly to address this issue and make students, give students more opportunities to understand climate change.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bruce. And I do want to reiterate, like, it's not our method to just chase points. This really is a system of metrics that allow us to do the thing that with integrity that we feel is the best choice for our students here in our community. So we want to see improvement, but it has to be meaningful. So that's also an extra burden that we've placed upon ourselves. We're not just in it for the points, but we'll take the points if we earn them. So.
Well, it's 1 o'clock, so we will go ahead and wrap up the rough cut. Thank you, Kristen, Paul, Bruce, Nick, and EJ for being on the panel and sharing all of the hard work you do on campus. Have a great day, everyone.